Welcome to the third round of the Legacy Challenge. We are currently up 2-0, and we are about to face another unknown deck. So what do you think I'm doing with this hand? Definitely keeping it. Like, I guess a lot of people would throw that hand back, but to me it's just, whenever I have like acceleration and half of the best friends team, and I'm on the draw, which means I get to like demonic tutor for another random card, it's just like, how could I ever mulligan that? I mean, I can totally see mulliganing that if you're like a very conservative player. But I think if you're a very conservative player, you're actually hurting your EV in the long run. So I really like keeping this hand. Especially in Elves, where taking a mulligan is so crazily risky, because you might take another mulligan and then another mulligan, and then you're down to 4, and then you need a lot of best friends action to get going again. And this, yeah, whenever I see Arab Mesa, I feel like miracles. Arab Mesa, Tundra, Ponda definitely feels a lot like miracles. This hand isn't great against miracles because, and we draw another Rotten Catacombs. Because miracles usually isn't attacking your mana base at all, and definitely not in the first game where they don't have Blood Moon. So any extra lands you draw are usually like useless unless you get something big mana-wise to work for, like Nissa. But even like the power of Nissa is that she could come down on the 3rd turn when Miracles is probably busy doing something else. Whereas if she comes down on the 5th turn, she's much more like vulnerable to counterspell or forces. But as it turns out, it's not Miracles, it's Stoneblade. He gets Umisawa's Chitter here, and I feel a lot better, but I feel eventually I'll have to draw, like, this is something. I need to draw something to get into this game. And the big problem right now for me here is that even though he hasn't used Swords of Plowshares, he also didn't ever have a good window to use Swords of Plowshares. So people would be like, oh, he didn't kill your Deathrite Shaman. Yeah, because because he wanted to cast Stormforge Mystic. So at this point, if I had Cabal Therapy, I would certainly, like, yeah, you would hit Chitter because you know about Chitter. But if I had to do a blind Cabal Therapy, and for some reason I wouldn't care about Chitter, I would certainly feel that he has Swords of Plowshares here. And therefore, when your opponent has Swords of Plowshares, and you want to go for the best friends team, and he plays Stoneblade, it's usually better to get the Visionary first, because then if you play a Viable Symbiote, he might feel that he needs to use the Swords of Plowshares in response on your Visionary, so you don't get more card advantage, and which is probably the correct choice for him. But the thing is, once you get down Viable Symbiote, you at least get to blank the Chitter, unless he draws Snapcaster Mage into a Swords of Plowshares or something. But there's only so much you can do about that anyway. I guess we have Deathrite Shaman to interfere with that, but generally speaking, that's just how I feel you want to do it. And here it's definitely the correct choice, because it also like makes better use of your mana by using your entire mana for this turn. He plays Force of Will, Pitch Counterspell, which is quite aggressive, but I don't hate it. Which makes me feel like he definitely has to have Swords of Plowshares here. Okay, but he's missing a 3rd land. We draw more mana than you can actually use. And at this point, I really just have to get the Viable Symbiont, because otherwise Chitter wrecks me. You could make a case for waiting. And he's got the absolute nuts. Oh, I remember this game now. See, you could make a case for waiting and then trying to get Reclamation Sage next time to take out the Chitter. And that is a valid play. I just don't really like it very much, because the Reclamation Sage doesn't really hold much value, whereas the Viable Symbiote gives you a lot of great top decks and like the remaining Visionaries and Senates that you have. But yeah, here our opponent, he pitches Snapcaster. He's got pretty much the nuts that you can have against Elves. You've got turn 2 Stoneforge and then 2 forces to protect it, which is usually what you need, or like 1 force and 1 Swords of Plowshares. He gets down Chitter, and now oh, and he's got the Batterscar first, which is quite surprising, but I guess you can do that. I would have certainly taken out a Deathrite Shaman with the Chitter if I was him. And he draws the extra land, and now we have got perfect information, but that doesn't really help us much. We do draw the Reclamation Sage. You can't really take out the Batterskull here, because like would he even bounce it? That's actually an interesting decision for him to make. The problem is if we play the Reclamation Sage, and actually if he allows us to take out the Batterskull, then we still lose at least the Reclamation Sage next turn. We could trade the Reclamation Sage for the Stoneforge if it attacks with Chitter. But overall, I think if I play the Reclamation Sage here, the correct play for him would be to just bounce Better Skull and hope to draw another land on the next turn. And since we haven't really done anything, he already pretty much knows that we're in top deck mode. So I think I'm just gonna bite the bullet, give him a bit more life, and then make sure to take out the Chitter, which over the course of the game should probably give us more outs. One problem would be if he always leaves a counter on the Chitter, then we are in kind of trouble, because then Violet Symbiote doesn't really get there. But if he takes out our creatures here, then we can draw Violet Symbiote. Oh, forget what I said, we're gonna take out the Chitter anyway. Now, the problem about that was if he keeps a counter on the Chitter and then kills the Reclamation Sage, then we will not be able to deal with the Better Skull in the long run. So here I'm kinda enticing him to kill both of our creatures, which would it would look like it would cripple our mana quite a bit, but he actually drew the Swords to Plowshares. Oh yeah, this is why I felt so angry about the game, because he even hit the Swords to Plowshares here, which is like the perfect draw. Otherwise, we could have taken out the Stormforge Mystic and then played the Reclamation Sage next turn to take out the Better Skull, which would have actually put us in a position where we can play the game, which is probably the weirdest part about all of this. Like, had he not drawn the Swords to Plowshares, this block would actually be quite nice, because yes, he takes out like both of our creatures, but then we've got the 2/1, a lot of mana, and he's got literally nothing. He's got a Chitter, but we would probably be able to beat that. But yeah, at this point, it's just like, okay, we're gonna lose everything, and is there even a way to come back from this? I'm gonna cast the Deathwatch Shaman. I think I'm also gonna cast the Reclamation Sage, because we have to. And then he does kill the Deathwatch Shaman, but not the Reclamation Sage, which allows us to hopefully draw a Violet Symbiote, but it's not looking good. We've got one more turn to do it, and if we don't, we draw Quirion Ranger. Do we still have Dryad Arbor? Yeah, we've got a Dryad Arbor left in the deck, which helps. The only interesting decision here is to whether we trade Stoneforge for Reclamation Sage. Because in the long run, like I mentioned, I value Reclamation Sage quite highly, and I think I'd rather just like take one more damage off the Stoneforge. But we're also getting quite low here. So I wouldn't mind having a Pendelhaven, but of course you... And... oh yeah, the game gets better. It's like, when I say you Demonic Tutor for a random card every turn, yeah, forget about that. This guy actually Demonic Tutors every turn. Yeah, this game felt like a huge blowout. It's kind of crazy how he gets everything he wants, but we are still almost in the game. Well, kind of, I guess. Let's say we draw... So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. For a couple of turns running, he gets everything he wants, and we are still in the game if we draw Violet Symbiote here. Imagine if we drew Violet Symbiote of the Visionary, that would be like crazy. We would still take some damage, but then we might be able to stabilize once we hit a creature, like Deathwatch Shaman. Or even just a random 2/2, but this hand is missing the Violet Symbiote. That's the problem. The Violet Symbiote, I think we would actually be favored here. Watch him flash and clicker and then still kill us. Yeah, I'm thinking about the blocks, but there's really not much that can save us here. We're going down to 2, hoping for one last draw to find Violet Symbiote. Does he have? And he finds True Name Nemesis. Yeah, that's kind of like clicker. Oh wow, I've seen the future. It's even worse than I thought. And I think at this point we just give up. You see whether he finds the secret hidden mode of True Name Nemesis. Attack. Protection black. No. Okay, forget about that. That's some stupid inside joke. Okay, so let's see how it works out in the next game. So as for my sideboarding, I took out all 3 natural orders and 2 Green Sun Sunnet because of Containment Priest that he might have. And also took out 2 Nettle Sentinels and a Quirion Ranger and a Krater Hoof, which is usually like if you take out 3 of those, you also take out a Krater Hoof. I brought in 2 Chokes, 3 Abrupt Decays, 3 Thought Seizes, and the Scavenging Ooze. I just really like playing against them as if they were like a crappy control deck that relies on like 2/1s and 1/2s and equipments that are never gonna make it, and to eventually just like grind them out. So this is how I did it for this game. Ideally, you'll just get turned to choke and they will cry. This hand is actually quite good. I don't really like Scavenging Ooze in this hand all that much because it's a bit slowish, and like this hand looks like it could use some speed. Maybe we can draw Nettle Sentinel. I would be super tempted to run out Dryad Arbor first, but you can't really do that. If they have the Swords to Plowshares, you're falling so far behind, it's not even funny. Getting the Bayou here because I get to protect it with Quirion Ranger, and I might need it, because they have a lot of things you want to Abrupt Decay. If there's one matchup where you would wish to always have Abrupt Decay, it's this one. They've got like all the Hate Bears, either Swan Canonist, they have Containment Priest, they have the Meddling Mage, they got Chitte. There's just too many things that you want to Abrupt Decay here. Oh, and we do draw the Nettle Sentinel, which would allow us to try a Glimpse, but it's not really great now. We can't really Glimpse here. So, at this point, I'm really just setting up to kill him on the next turn. He fetches, which is never good for me, because it could be Brainstorm Terminus, because there's some Stoneblade decks will run Terminus, but if he Brainstorms here, I think I'm still feeling fine. Because maybe it's just like a Desperation Brainstorm to get a better mana curve, but he takes out this guy, which is okay. I'd rather have him take out this guy than Heritage to it on a hand like this. And he passes. I was so hoping he'd play some random card for 2, but he doesn't. Okay, now this is interesting. Do I Glimpse here? Like, I actually don't know what I'm about to do. So, going through my head is that he hasn't done anything, so I feel he's got Containment Priest, because did he keep 7? 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. It was just his third turn. Yeah, he kept 7, it looks like. So he must have something good, and apparently that's neither Meddling Mage nor Stoneforge, so I would think it's Containment Priest, but we don't really care much about that. And there's also not really any card that he can punish us with next turn. Like, if he was able to cast Chase next turn, I would probably play in a different way. I would put some power on the board. But since he doesn't, I think I wouldn't be surprised if I just went for Elvish Visionary here and then passed the turn. Because that sets up for a potential Glimpse next turn, because we're also drawing extra card, which gives us 1 more land draw. Yeah, and turns out that's exactly what I do. Drawing Cradle? No, oh, Bachelor Ranger also has. Helps. And he's like, hey, but I've got this Containment Priest. Does he? Yeah! I knew it. And there's nothing else once again. Apparently I also know is it Static Caster, because that would have taken out the Dryad Arbor, and I think at this point it's very safe to just Glimpse here. You could even wait 1 more turn and hope that he has like land plus Chitte and then blow him out with the decay and then untap into kill, which would even shut off Counterspell. And let's see whether he has Counterspell. Like, even if he has Counterspell here, I feel we just have like Overwhelming Forces. Overwhelming Forces, not horses. I once said Overwhelming Horses. Okay, Swords. That's okay. I think if I was him, I would have actually kept that Swords and aimed it at either Heritage or Birchlaw. Because this way, the only way he gets to punish us is if you have Cradle. And, I mean, you're not getting great value out of that Swords that way, because we still get to get like 2 mana out of Cradle, unless he has Lightning. Oh! Actual Lightning Bolt, okay. So I guess that stops our Glimpse chain, and unless we draw a land. No, we don't. Okay. I guess this is another kind of game where Elf's nature of being really good against spot removal shines, because like, yeah, you get some spot removal, but you also like drew 2 cards out of that. So it didn't really matter too much. But at this point I would really like to start drawing lands. We don't, but now we get to put our entire hand to the board. Unless he's got the Snapcaster Mage into another removal spell. Oh man, this is getting old now. But at this point I'm feeling great still. Unless he like, if he has Chitte here, it's super annoying if he can't draw a land on the next turn, but otherwise, like, we probably can only play Lana Waves next turn, but I'm always feeling like, yeah, we will draw the land. Of course we will draw the land. We will probably draw Cradle, because that would be like super crazy. Then you've got the Best Friends team established and like a recurring mana source when you go for the Visionary, which means that you can cast even more cards that you draw off the Visionary. We also have Abrupt Decay in case he does something crazy. But yeah, we need to find the land, but I'm feeling like, yeah, sure, what else? I mean, why would we not find the land? And I don't even know if we will find the land, but we probably will. Another Brainstorm still? No, oh, and no fetch land. Which makes the Brainstorm... Oh, okay, I guess that counts as a fetch land. And he will probably get Chitta. And, see? I actually didn't know that, but I just felt like, of course we will draw that. Why would we not? It's just, it's written. It's, I don't know, predetermined by fate or something. And at this point, we get to do what every Elves player loves to do, and that is to first abuse Cradle, and then abuse Heritage Druid and Nettle Sentinel, and then abuse Wildwood Symbiote and Visionary. Ah, it feels so good. It's like, hey opponent, look at this. Draw 3 cards. Or 2 in this case. Yeah. Give me all of that. Like, even if he eventually has to wrath the board using Supreme Verdict, don't really care all that much about it, do we? I mean, I guess you could make a case for not casting the Scavenging Ooze. I wonder whether we will still cast the Scavenging Ooze. We could also just draw natural. Oh no, we don't have natural order in the deck anymore. And that would be pretty bad, actually, in the face of Containment Priest. Okay, yeah, I end up casting the Scavenging Ooze, which makes sense because it shuts off Snapcaster Mage as another potential draw for him by taking out the 2 Swords to Plowshares, and also starts putting pressure back on him, which I also kind of like. It's also another, like, I don't want to say insurance, but if for some reason he manages to take out Wildwood Symbiote and attack with the Chitta, then this Scavenging Ooze untaps the Nettle Sentinel, and then we've got like 2 potential blockers for... Yeah, Containment Priest probably wouldn't get in there. But it's a way to put some offense up against the Chitta, because if he gets 2 counters on the Chitta and takes out the Scavenging Ooze, then we still got this going, and then we take out Chitta with Abrupt Decay. And if he decides to take out this and some random elf, then this guy grows pretty big. We take out Chitta, and then we've got the biggest guy in the room, and we can start bashing as soon as the next turn with our, like, 6/6 at that point. So, yeah, that's the upside of playing the Ooze, and I kinda like that. Don't be scared. We just bounce the Visionary here. And then, yeah. There's no need to go on the offense yet. There's a chance that the opponent might have better Skull. Okay, he goes for the Force of Will on that. Makes sense. Would totally Force of Will that too, if I was him. And at this point... Do I take out the Containment Priest? No, it doesn't really make sense. I guess the only reason to take out the Containment Priest would be to grow the Scavenging Ooze even further. But it probably doesn't change the clock, so there's no real need for that. And I'd rather hit the Chitta that we know about in his hand. Because there's like a weird combination of cards where he goes like Land, Zealous Persecution, Chitta, Equip Attack. But then we still got the big Ooze to block, so yeah, I think he's really screwed here. I guess that's just how it works with these Stoneblade decks. They're not really all that powerful. They're not like a control deck. They won't Terminus into entreat you. And they're also not very nimble. So they heavily rely on True Name Nemesis getting there, which also, like, all by on its own is kind of like a slowish card. Especially if you don't really get to put your equipments on it. So that's why this kind of deck is, like, exactly the kind of deck you want to play against with Elves. Oh, and he actually ends up having Supreme Verdict. He's on 12 life. I wonder which creature I'm gonna bounce. Could even make a case for bouncing the Nettle Sentinel because it just deals more damage, and we will also have Dryad Arbor next turn. Or do we? Yeah, we do. Yeah, don't hate bouncing the Nettle Sentinel. Is it gonna be the Nettle Sentinel? Yeah, it ends up being the Nettle Sentinel. Oh, consistency. Yo, we got it. Can't be countered. And yeah, I'm taking out the land, which probably doesn't even matter. I doubt that he plays any death spells. I guess all his death spells have been banned. There you go. Pleasure Cruise. And we get Dryad Arbor to get in there. Ah, that's a great draw. We get to like rebuild our board. Unless he is... Well, what would he have? Like, if he throws away his entire hand to counter this glimpse, be my guest. No. And then we just like establish a board that will probably be able to kill in 2 turns from now. And if he actually ends up having Snapcaster Mage into Supreme Verdict, well, okay, I wouldn't really worry too much about that. Because we already have the next glimpse ready, and still abrupt decay for any crazy things he might do. So how much damage do we have in the next turn? We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, and usually 9. But yeah, I would only do 8. He ends up having the Snapcaster into Supreme Verdict. But okay, he would just bounce out Dry Arbor and rebuild from here. His last card is still Chitter, right? So basically he's Hellbent, doesn't have anything. And we just... I could wait. I could see waiting a turn. No, I'm greedy. I'm greedy. I want to finish this game as soon as I can. And Stoneforge into probably... No, oh, he still has something? Oh, yeah, okay. He's still got Better Skull in the deck. He puts out Chitter and equips it. And we draw another Abrupt Decay. I was wondering whether we would Abrupt Decay the Chitter or the Stoneforge, but at this point I think I'm just going to Abrupt Decay the Stoneforge and get in there. He can cast... okay. He can cast Better Skull in the next turn, which is annoying, but we actually have two... How would you call that? Like... Urza Saga... Red Kamen that I picked surprisingly high in draft. Non-flying creatures can't block. Flatter? No, not Shatter. It's a card you pick really high in red-green aggro. Flatter. Somebody in the comments will know. So yeah. I think I'm really just gonna... Oh, okay. I'm really just gonna check out the Charm here and get him for 2. But let's see what this Visionary draws us. Probably Reclamation Sage. Oh, it actually is kind of Reclamation Sage-ish. So here we're just gonna pass because we could get in for 1 by taking this one out and attacking the Heritage to it, but I'd rather conceal that kind of information and use that on his attack step. I think it doesn't really matter all that much, but somehow I valued that higher. Okay, Search might just be too slow. We've got 3, 6... Yeah, we are 1 mana short of getting Behemoth here. And we're just doing what you always do in Elves. You just establish the best friends team and draw all your extra cards. And I think I'm gonna take out Search here. Jitter really isn't all that threatening. And I feel Search is the more threatening card. Oh, and we got Choke. It's getting even better. Get in for 2. Take him down to 7. And then we cast... Oh, do we really cast nothing? He takes Better Skull back to his hand. I would have sworn we would have cast... Okay, Patience. Patience wins out, I guess. Oh yeah, another reason... Okay, I can see that. Because it doesn't really get... Yeah, I guess it didn't really change my decision, but he needed to put a card into the graveyard to actually get this to flip. So if he had a great card on top, he would have to decide between drawing that card or flipping the Search. And I think that puts him in a weird spot. Fortunately for him, he had a bad card on top, if that makes sense. And yeah, he just gets to find more instant and sorceries, and instants and sorceries are not what I'm scared of at this point, because this doesn't get any creatures or permanents that could cause problems for us. He shows us another Swords to Plowshares, but that's okay. Also, this is super mana intensive, and Choke helps with that. And he just plays Better Skull, okay, and at this point Choke is gonna hit him so hard. We just take out this guy. We just play this guy first, okay. At this point I'm just toying with him pretty much. He's only got 1 card in hand that I don't really care about. I'm looking to find an extra elf to generate a little more mana eventually, which would make Senate even more potent. Finding Reclamation Sage if it's still in the deck. Yeah, it hasn't been killed yet. Or has it? No, it has not. But yeah, you just take out the Charm. and the opponent concedes. Like, at this point, he untaps with like 2 lands, and doesn't really matter all that much. So, in the end, you could have made like 1 or 2 different decisions, which I think would have still led to winning the game. Thinking about it, I kind of like keeping the Abrupt Decay and letting him flip the Ascanta, because, as I mentioned, like instant sorcery is not really much that I care about. I care more about like creatures that I couldn't handle. Like True Name Nemesis would be annoying, and I couldn't Abrupt Decay that, but at least would allow me to take out the Chitter. But yeah, True Name Nemesis would probably be the worst thing to happen to us, especially if it started taking the better skull, because then the race actually probably swings in his favor, even though we get to draw a bunch of cards and Crowder wins most races. Yeah, I think I would have actually played it this way again, not worrying about the Ascanta. Yeah. So we are 3-0. There are still 4 more rounds in the Swiss to go, and I will see you next round. Until then.